And it's good to have you with us. President Donald Trump has said he wants to lift sanctions on North Korea, but says the North has to do something meaningful as well. That message comes with less than a week to go until he meets Kim Jong-un in Hanoi for the second time. We'll discuss Trump's comments further later in the show, but first we catch up with the latest headlines with Devin Whiting at the News Center. Devin?
Hi, Jung-ho. In the meantime, officials from Pyongyang and Washington are about to start meeting again about those details. Both sides have sent envoys to Hanoi, hoping to reach a deal that'll make the summit a success. Park Hee-jun has the latest.
North Korea and the U.S. are expected to begin their second round of negotiations as early as Thursday to discuss the agenda for their upcoming summits. According to the Washington Post, U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun arrived in Hanoi late Wednesday evening. The report says Biegun will hold talks with his counterpart Kim Jong-un to clinch a detailed agreement that satisfies President Trump and withstands the concerns of hardliners who warn that the North is not to be trusted. North Korea's Special Representative for U.S. Affairs of the State Affairs Commission Kim Jong-un also arrived in the Vietnamese capital on the same day after flying via Beijing. He was accompanied by Kim Sung-hae, head of the Unification Strategy Office at the United Front Department, and Choi Kang-il, the acting director general for the Foreign Ministry's North American Affairs Department. In their first meeting in Pyongyang earlier this month, the two sides reportedly discussed the North's shutdown of its Yongbyon nuclear complex and Washington's corresponding measures, setting up a joint liaison office, declaring an end to the Korean War, and the easing of sanctions. Biegun revealed afterwards that they did set the summit agenda, but have yet to decide on the details. With only a week remaining until the second North Korea-U.S. summit, the two sides are expected to sort out those details and lay the groundwork for the Hanoi Declaration to be adopted by Kim Jong-un and President Trump. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Also ahead of the summit, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton will reportedly visit South Korea this week. CNN on Wednesday cited two Trump administration officials in its report, but U.S. National Security Council spokesperson Garrett Marcus said they have nothing to announce right now. It's unclear why Bolton might visit Seoul and who he would meet. But with officials from Pyongyang and Washington hammering out the details of the summit, it's expected Bolton would discuss those with senior South Korean officials. Bolton attended last year's Singapore summit and was at the table when President Trump met with Kim Jong-un and other North Korean officials. Arriving in Seoul today for a two-day visit is the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. He's President Moon's first state guest of 2019. The two leaders will have a meeting tomorrow, sign an MOU, and attend a state luncheon. According to the Blue House, they'll be discussing ways to expand practical cooperation in areas such as infrastructure, science and technology, and the defense industry. They'll also likely reaffirm India's full support for the peace process on the Korean Peninsula. This is Prime Minister Modi's first trip to Korea in 4 years. President Moon made a state visit to India last July. Korea's exports of tech products took a dive in January compared to a year earlier. Data shows shipments of ICT products were down more than 18%, led by semiconductors. Our Ko Ryun-hee reports.
Semiconductors, display panels, and mobile phones. These are the three products that drive South Korea's ICT exports. And because of a fall in shipments in those categories, the country's overall ICT exports slumped by 18.2% on-year in January, topping out at around $14.5 billion US. South Korea's ICT-related exports have been dropping on-year for 3 consecutive months now. According to South Korea's Trade Ministry on Thursday, the biggest hit came from semiconductors exports, which tumbled by more than 20% during the same period. This comes as prices of memory chips such as DRAM fell over the past year. Looking at the average spot price for a 4 gigabit DRAM chip, last month it was around $3 US, lower than roughly $5 a year earlier. Analysts say the semiconductor market is suffering from oversupply and experiencing lower than expected demand from data centers. Exports of other key items don't make pretty reading either. South Korea's display panel exports fell by 12.7%, and mobile phones by a whopping 30.8%, both due to rise in international competition, especially from Chinese manufacturers. By export destination, shipments to China slumped by more than 30%, while exports to the U.S. jumped by almost 15%. The South Korean government is painting a brighter picture for ICT exports in the coming months, as further data center expansion is expected in the second half of the year. It also aims to advance the ICT industry overall by pushing major export items other than semiconductors and supporting small and mid-sized firms in the sector. 보르니, Arirang News.
And making headlines today around the world is a new device from Samsung Electronics. It's highly anticipated first foldable smartphone. It was revealed on Wednesday in San Francisco, along with the company's other new flagship phones. Oh Soo-young reports.
Samsung Electronics has launched one of the world's first foldable smartphones and its new flagship lineup at its highly anticipated Unpacked launch event. At a convention in San Francisco on Wednesday, all eyes were on the Galaxy Fold, the first bendable smartphone to be released by the company. The 7.3-inch Infinity Flex display can be folded hundreds of thousands of times without wear and tear, according to Samsung, which took 7 years to develop the technology. When folded, a second display measures 4.6 inches. The phone also features 6 cameras. Samsung's flagship Galaxy S10 models are also set to break the conventions of smartphone technology. The flagship models S10 and the 1TB S10 Plus feature the world's first ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, which will come almost bezel-free and with a triple-lens camera setup on the rears. A 5G-ready version of the phone was also revealed, along with a simpler S10e model. But the question is whether consumers will be convinced, as the new models come with hefty price tags, the foldable device set to retail for a staggering $1,980.
The pricing seems to be a sensitive issue given the global economic slowdown as well as growing competition from low-cost brands like Huawei. But consumers these days rave about user experience, and the new and improved Galaxy S10 features deliver. Also, the foldable phone is set apart as a new, innovative product that pleases aesthetically and technologically.
Industry tracker Counterpoint Research projects the latest Galaxy series will top 40 million sales within its first year on the market, about 5 million more than the previous S9 version. In South Korea, Galaxy S10 handsets will hit the shelves on March 8th, with pre-orders starting Monday. The 5G will be released near the end of March and the Galaxy Fold in late April. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in offered some words of wisdom today to Korea's young adults. Speaking at a graduation ceremony at Yuhan University, he urged them to take on new challenges and be confident in the face of obstacles put there by older generations. Here's the president at Yuhan University.
저는 여러분이 아직 무엇을 이루기에 어리다고 생각하거나 기성세대가 만든 높은 장벽에 좌절하여 도전을 포기하지 않기를 바랍니다.
Young people,
도전하고 실패하며 다시 일어서는 것에 대해서 두려움을 가져서는 안 됩니다.
Young people, the president said, should not have to give up on finding a way forward. He pledged to work to build a society in which anyone can realize their dreams under fair competition and with equal opportunity. Yuhan University is a vocational college established by Yu Il-han, the late founder of Korea's leading pharmaceutical firm, Yuhan Corporation. Yu also funded the movement for Korea's independence from Japanese colonial rule. This was President Moon's second time speaking at a university while in office, and he is only the second sitting president to give a commencement address. I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines.
US President Donald Trump has said that he expects to have more summits with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un even after their meeting in Hanoi next week. But in the meantime, Trump is calling on Pyongyang to take, quote, meaningful steps if it wants to see sanctions lifted. Lee Ji-won reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump has again stressed that he and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un have a very good relationship, but that sanctions will be in place until more is done.
The sanctions are on in full. As you know, I haven't taken sanctions off. I'd love to be able to, but in order to do that, we have to do something that's meaningful on the other side.
This comes as President Trump fielded questions from reporters at the White House prior to his bilateral talks with Austria's chancellor on Wednesday. And as if to further lure North Korea into taking that meaningful step, President Trump also reiterated the potential he sees in North Korea's economy. While stressing that he will be meeting with Kim Jong-un for 2 days this time, President Trump hinted on the likelihood of having more summits with Kim.
But we've made a lot of progress. We've made a tremendous amount. That doesn't mean this is going to be the last meeting, because I don't believe it will. But we have subjects to discuss which will be very fruitful, I believe.
This comes in line with President Trump saying that he is in no rush over North Korea's denuclearization on Tuesday. He said he doesn't have any pressing time schedule and that as long as there is no nuclear testing, he's in no hurry. These remarks add to speculation that Trump is trying to lower expectations about the upcoming summit, with no complete denuclearization deal reached this time as well. Some observers suggest the meeting could first settle on a nuclear freeze for now. 이지원, Arirang News.
Now, for more on that, we have with us Professor Kim Hyun-wook from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. It's good to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
So let's start with the end of that report. Trump has said that he expects more meetings with Kim Jong-un in the future, and the report says, this is being seen as Trump trying to lower expectations over next week's summit, because that means there'll be more left to discuss. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I think so. We usually compare this meeting with what happened in the past between U.S. and North Korea. When you look through the meetings and agreements, we have seen very much detailed contents in the agreement, maybe in the Geneva Agreed Framework in 1994, and also in the process of six-part process. We see some of the September 19th, agreement, and also first phase and second phase agreement, which is October 3rd and February 13th agreements. They contained a very detailed, contents there about how to remove nuclear weapons and how to remove nuclear programs of North Korea completely, and in response, what kinds of energy assistance the U.S. and other parties are giving to North Korea. But this time, first meeting, Singapore meeting, it was very historical meeting between two leaders, very historical. So we didn't really care about the contents. But this time, second meeting, there should be very concrete, detailed, contents about how to denuclearize North Korea and what kind of corresponding measures will be given by the states to North Korea. So that's what people are expecting, comparing what happened in the past. But when you look at some of these situations that Kim Hyok-chol and Big-un is coming back to Hanoi again to narrow the gaps, finally trying to narrow the gaps, only have about 4 or 5 days to talk about, and maybe Trump thinks that the possibility to have a detailed agreement would be very low. So he has to think about what will be the aftermath in the domestic United States politics, and maybe that's this kinds of comments that is to low expectations and trying to soothe and lower down the criticism from the domestics in the United States, I think.
Because if he suggests that they're going to have more talks again, do we expect again within this year another round of talks with Kim Jong-un this year?
I don't know. I think this time it depends upon what kinds of progress in the working level would evolve in the future. Maybe after the summit meetings, two countries would also talk about the specifics and details about denuclearization. Steve Big-un and Kim Hyok-chol might get together and talk about it, and also there might be several other summits. For example, Kim Jong-un's possible visit to Seoul, maybe sometime in March, hopefully. And in May, if President Trump visits Japan, he might come to Seoul and have a summit meeting with President Moon Jae-in. So these series of events would cover the first half of this year. So maybe afterwards, if things go okay in the working level discussions and some of the possible implementations, maybe possibly end of this year or early next year, we can have third summit meeting. And we have to make, also take note that President Trump wants to use it for the re-election. campaign, which begins early next year.
Trump also said that although he would love to lift sanctions on North Korea, but then that North Korea has to do something meaningful, and that's in quotes. I mean, what does that mean, something meaningful, and how do you think Kim will respond?
In the Pyongyang agreement and declaration, common declaration, joint declaration between Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un, it stipulated that North Korea would dismantle and destroy the Dongchang, the missile test sites, and also Yongbyon facilities if there are some corresponding measures by the United States. But the U.S. wants declaration and verification. That's some of the important measures that the U.S. wants. That has been stipulated in the speech by Stephen Biegun at Stanford, the speech at Stanford. It clarified that comprehensive declaration and roadmap of declaration should be agreed between two countries, and also inspection and verification in Yongbyon facilities and beyond should be something that should be agreed between two countries. When you look at the six-party process, they have agreed upon declaration, but implementation of declaring all the nuclear programs in North Korea was not successful because of North Korea's rejection. But at least in six-party process, declaration was agreed in the agreement. So I think at least there should be an agreement about how to declare North Korean nuclear programs. I think that's the basis we can come up with the level that they have agreed in the six-party process. And I think that's something the U.S. wants as a substantial denuclearization measures of North Korea.
But the chances of getting those kind of substantial denuclearization measures seem slim, and Trump also seems to be lowering expectations with some of his comments about what we're going to get from the summit. The report actually says that perhaps we should be looking more towards they might just settle for a nuclear freeze. Does that sound like something that they might just settle for now?
Yes, I think so. But I think North Korea might do more than just freezing nuclear production. Yes, in the speech, New Year's speech, Kim Jong-un mentioned that he will also stop producing nuclear capabilities. But I think this time Kim Jong-un might want to do more, which, for example, destroying and dismantling some of the facilities of nuclear facilities, for example, Yongbyon facilities. That's what he has mentioned, if there are some corresponding measures. So even though what U.S. demands, for example, declaration and inspection and verification, even though those things might not be included in the agreement, some kinds of smaller deal possibility between two countries, I think, are still possible. For example, some very light sanction lifting by the United States, and without verification, just destroying and dismantling Yongbyon facilities, I think that kind of small deal might be possible.
You've mentioned that the officials, Stephen Biegun and Kim Hyok-chol, are meeting in Hanoi this week and for the last few days to finalize the details. But you've also mentioned how difficult agreeing these terms are. And there's some reports that are saying it's going to be up to the leaders, President Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, who will be making the final decisions, and the draft for the agreement will be made literally on the day during the meeting. Do you think that could be a possibility? Is the work that the officials are doing right now in Hanoi more just groundwork for the actual meeting itself?
Yes, I think Kim Hyok-chol and Biegun might come together and narrow the gap. I think they have some kinds of draft agreement with a lot of blanks, I think, and they might want to just fill in the blanks. But still, I think before the summit comes up, there might be several blanks that is still not filled in, which should be filled in by President Trump and Kim Jong-un. If the two leaders cannot agree on what to fill in the blanks, I think those blanks will be just erased. It would not be included in the agreement at all, which means that the agreement this time will be, again, very haphazard, principle-based agreement, which is not about a detailed agreement about denuclearization. But still, I think that's the process, and there are some portions that two leaders have to do. I'm not sure how much they will come up with, because Trump mentioned several times, and this time again, that he would maintain the sanctions on North Korea. He would like to lift sanctions, but there should be some measures done by North Korea in order for sanctions to be lifted. I think that's the focal point. They have to talk, but we'll see how it goes.
Trump has said the US will keep sanctions on North Korea, but what's interesting as well was actually South Korea's President Moon Jae-in. He phoned Trump earlier this week and said South Korea is ready and willing to continue to expand inter-Korean cooperation as a way to encourage North Korea to denuclearize. Now, they mentioned various economic projects such as the rail and road reconnection project, and in the past, they've also been mentioned of the Kaesong Industrial Complex. But perhaps it's the Mount Kumgang Tour project that would be the most easy item they can discuss to restart again. Or what do you think about that?
Yes, I think President Moon Jae-in wants to, kind of expedite this process. He wants to expedite the North-South détente and economic cooperation, but in order for that, there should be some sanctions lifted. And some of the issues that is not related to the United Nations sanctions, but still some kinds of initial steps for the North-South economic cooperation is used that it's Kumgang Mountain tourism. Chinese tourist companies, they bring people to North Korea for tourism, which is not the violation of United Nations sanctions. So if some, for example, Hyundai Asan companies, which is in charge of, mounting Kumgang tourism again, possibly, is not giving something to North Korea in a bulk cash form or something, which is violating United Nations sanctions, but operate the tourism as the way that other tourist companies do, I think that would be no problem. That would be not violating the United sanctions. But I think that would be very important first step for a possible economic cooperation between North and South Koreas.
Now let's look ahead to some of the details that are coming up next week. For example, we know the summit's going to happen next week, 27th, 28th they've announced, but the summit venue still hasn't really been confirmed. We know it's in Hanoi, but there are various sites that they're looking at. But one of the top locations they discussed was the National Convention Center, but that has now been reportedly rejected by North Korean officials as well, citing safety reasons. Now, how important is safety for North Korea during this trip?
It is the safety of Kim Jong-un is very important for his trip. Last Singapore meeting, out of 180 people, which is North Korean, delegates numbers, 100 people were in charge of guarding Kim Jong-un. So more than half of people were, for the purpose of, guarding Kim Jong-un. That's safety for the safety of Kim Jong-un. And this time, I think it's more days. I think, if they begin the summit 27th, Kim Jong-un would fly in or, arrive in Hanoi 26th, have a summit meeting 27th, 28th. And 29 and 30 possibly have a bilateral meeting with Vietnamese leader and have some, just investigation, some other, economic zone and stuff. So I think he would be in Hanoi or Vietnam at least for 4 days, 3 or 4 days at least, which is a very, long period of time. So I think this time, protocol and guard issues would be more important than Singapore. And you mentioned it right that the place for the meeting, I think, and also what kinds of transportation he's using, all that kind of things will be very important this time, more important than Singapore meeting.
Very briefly, one more question I want to ask. CNN is reporting now that the U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton is set to visit Seoul this week. Why do you think he's visiting?
I think this is for the purpose of tuning. At the final meeting, time with Korean government. I think the U.S. is ready for what kinds of boundaries and zone of negotiation it would have when it talks with Kim Jong-un and North Korean delegates. So I think before they come up with negotiation with North Korea, I think the final tuning with Korean government, that's I think the purpose.
Well, we'll have to wrap it up there. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
And that's where we close out our show. I'll be back same time tomorrow, but do stay tuned to Arirang for our later newscast for all the latest updates. Thank you for watching and hope you can join us again next time. Goodbye.
Your delivery has arrived. There is no country like Korea where you can order a variety of foods as quickly and conveniently as you can anywhere in the world. Foreigners want to experience this delivery culture once they come to Korea. From early dawn until late at night, whenever you want, wherever you are. There's even a delivery zone at Hangang Park. Thanks to the increasing use of smartphones, it is possible to deliver food through mobile application, making the delivery culture of Korea easier and more diverse. The most famous delivery food is, of course, chicken. But people can order a variety of foods from sandwiches, raw fish, pork belly to grilled lobster butter, beyond your imagination. The more you know, the more you experience convenient